I'd like to request Sister Sai Lakshmi Rao, a regional female young adult advisor, to come and introduce our guest speaker for the evening. Sairam.
Sairam. I guess that was my warm-up, right? My humble pranams to our ever-loving Bhagavan. We pray to you. Bless us all, Swami. I have the pleasure this evening of introducing our guest speaker, Dr. Geetha Govindarajan. A little bit of bio about Dr. Geetha Govindarajan. I mean, I don't think these few lines do any justice to what she does, but a bit of introduction. Dr. Geetha Govindarajan, MD, PhD, MPH, serves as the Director of Clinical Innovation at a large federally qualified health center serving the south side of Chicago, where she oversees population health efforts, innovates with digital health technologies to improve health outcomes, and most recently led the COVID-19 pandemic task force for the health center. Her tryst with divinity is likely timeless, but at an very early age, it was nourished by family, SSC, and YA programs. Geetha held leadership roles within the YA wing of Region 5 and has been actively involved in several medical and disaster relief efforts. She enjoys her ha-ha moments from the universe, not afraid to travel the road less traveled by, and guided beyond to think globally and act locally. Trained as an internal med specialist, physician, scientist, and public health practitioner, she earned her MPH from Harvard in International Health, PhD in cellular physiology from Loyola, Chicago, and Maryland from George Washington University, Washington, D.C. Dr. Govindarajan is an inspiration for all healthcare professionals, and especially the Satyasai young adults, to serve the needy in their local communities. I now welcome Dr. Govindarajan to the podium.
Well, Sairam, everybody, it's amazing to be in the campsite and live, and already to see a sprinkling of folks that I actually do recognize in the audience. Thank you. I think it goes without saying to be able to be here in the august presence of all of the divine souls that have gathered here today, and those that are watching from home. It is my humble salutation to the divine in all of you to give me this opportunity to think about this particular topic of attitude of gratitude. I will have to first start off with some disclaimers. Just because I'm here doesn't mean that I'm an authority by any long shot. My parents are watching from Chicago, and they will keep it real that I am very much a work in progress. So what I am about to present is just my understanding of this little topic that Aparna placed in front of me, and I'll tell you a brief story around it as well, that I'm truly a work in progress, and I can only speak with the authority of my own experiences and to the level of my understanding. And there may be many of you in the audience who probably are stalwarts and can probably give a dissertation level conversation on this. So with that, I proceed with today's topic, which was around attitude of gratitude. And this was a topic that I received maybe about in the month of, okay. Is that better? Okay. This was a topic that I received maybe in, I want to say January, February timeframe when Aparna approached me. And I really was not expecting to be saying yes to that topic. Usually when I feel like I'm called to talk about something from Swami, I always say yes, and then kind of struggle with, why did I say that? But this time I said, I don't know about this. And we were running through our Omicron crisis in Chicago, so my life was fairly, indulged with what I was doing with work. And I did, which I have never done in my life, which is never to respond to a text message. I'm usually very good about it, and it's usually one of my biggest pet peeves when people don't respond to texts. And so I did exactly what I typically would not want to be done to, and I did not respond to Aparna. It's better to do this in everybody's presence, so the poor lady did not bother me for a while. And another brother in Chicago gently nudged me about a month later, like, hey, did you respond? And I said, yeah, I don't think I'm the right speaker for this particular topic. If anything, in the last several months, I've just not felt connected, and needless to say, I'm not the right person. And so I'm sure they would have found somebody else by now, and all is well. But he did manage to throw in a little bit of guilt in that process, so I felt like I had to reach out to her. And so I did. I said, Sairam, Aparna, sorry, I totally forgot, and I'm so sorry, and I'm not going to be able to come. And she was very gracious. She was like, of course, no worries, and another time. And I said, yes, out of it. And so meanwhile, I continued on. Life sort of appeased a little bit with Omicron and seemed to sort of move towards a trajectory of normalcy. And I started making other plans, including an international trip. And precisely maybe about 4 weeks ago, I get another text from her saying, hey, so what do you think about coming here and giving the talk? At that point, I knew that this was something more than what I was trying to resist, and I said, give me 24 hours, please, to think about this. But this time I was mindful because there is no way that an opportunity presents itself twice. And so I said I would be intentional and I would be mindful. And I was slightly in a better place and I felt I was a little bit more centered. And I said, I will give Swami exactly 24 hours to come up with some sort of a sign. And if he makes this happen, then cool, I'm going to go. Because I had already made plans for this upcoming weekend, but Saturday was open. So I waited a little bit longer, and the whole day went by. I kept my eyes and ears open for signs, the usual ways. I looked deliberately, in all the billboards, nothing. I desperately opened up books, nothing. My patients that day were anything but an epitome of gratitude, so I was pretty sure that maybe I'm not going to get the signs I'm looking for. And I was aware that time was ticking in my own internal clock, but thankfully Aparna was busy with some other conference that she was attending, so she had not bugged me yet. So I was like, oh, she's not asking. At 11:23, I always like that time frame, I'm sure as all of you guys do too, I happened to look at my phone, and I said, okay, well, time to go to bed, and I don't think I'm going to get any more. I was like, one last scroll. And then there's an app that I never, ever look at, ever look at. And it so happened that I managed to open it for whatever reason. And what was on the app, I wish I had a picture of it, but it said specifically, there was a picture of Buddha, and it said, it is an honor to live a life of gratitude, And if you have the attitude of gratitude, then your life gains a meaning of its own, or something to that effect. Not sure to think about this concept of attitude with gratitude, which I think all of us know everything there is to know about it. There's nothing that I'm speaking that's going to be spectacularly new. But I think in the last 3 weeks or 4 weeks, most of my friends and family have, and in my patients, have all been subjected to this question because I kind of needed inspiration. And so your tribe is pretty much the one that kind of, from whom you glean the collective wisdom. So for the tribe that I have bugged, for the patients that have offered their guidance, for my colleagues that have given wisdom, I would like to really thank them from the bottom of their hearts, from my heart, and just wanted to thank them for being them. And this allows me to be me. And hopefully today, whatever comes through my mouth is an offering of your collective wisdom. I'd like to start with this prayer because I had a narrative that I had, but in the last 6-7 hours of traveling from Chicago to here, which was equally character building, I must say I may have forgotten what I would have wanted to say. So I want to start with the Ho'oponopono prayer, which is a very dear prayer that has become part of my lingo since 2019, and I'll get to the story around it. But really is one to say, I love the divine in you. I am sorry if I may make mistakes through this process. Please forgive me, and thank you for the opportunity to be here today, to be able to reflect on life and the precious moments that it has offered, and also challenging me to be mindful in the last several weeks, and hopefully sustain it for the coming days, weeks, and hopefully months and years. Sometimes when you're on the other side of the aisle, to listen to a speaker speak for an hour can be extremely exhausting. So I'm not expecting you to be awake for the entirety of the speech. Feel free to sleep if you need to, or zone out. And I say that with a level of confidence because I myself have done it, been there, done it, and I have done it every time Swami has spoken. So I always joke with Swami that the moment, so I've had the opportunity to see his physical form when I was a kid and definitely as a young adult. And every time Swami would have a discourse, and typically would be in the months of July or in November, and there would be there is a spider. And he would always manage to, as soon as he would start talking, he would say, Prema Swarupa Lara, and you have no idea. I would have drunk tea, coffee, anything and everything to keep myself awake. I would even have a pen, a paper in my hand just so that I would, be able to capture his writing. He would say Prema Swarupa Lara, and I would just fall asleep. Quite impressive, considering divine in the form of Swami walked this earth and is speaking words. And I don't understand Telugu, so one could argue that maybe the words don't really hit you that hard and you're waiting on the translator to, translate those words. But still, it was impressive. I would have my writing, and somewhere along the way I would have just nodded off. And it would baffle me. But each time I would have maybe leaned over and fallen on some person, my friends, or some random human being, and then they would have knocked me up. And I would wake up only to capture the 1 or 2 sentences that I probably needed to hear, I would write that down and fall asleep. So if I look at my notes versus what may have come in the transcription of Swami's discourses, I was like, wow, I missed that many, snippets of what he had spoken. But it would baffle me because I was like, oh my God, I'm terrible. Like, what is wrong with me? Why am I falling asleep every single time? I think I made my peace with it at some point, thinking that these were truly the only points I really needed to hear at that particular point in time, because oftentimes what Swami says are just so many things, and to truly grasp all of it and to make sense of it may be not humanly possible, but I do think that he manages to give you the things that you need, and if you manage to capture even those little things and apply it to your life, that's plenty to work on. And this I confirmed once with Mrs. Phyllis Crystal when she was giving one of the Cutting the Ties discourses in New Jersey. When she had come here, it was a course, and I remember asking her the same, and she said, "Oh, that's okay, dear, no worries. It means that, sleep is a way your subconscious mind raises to the top to absorb that which you need and kind of quells your conscious mind." I think a long story short to say that hopefully there are some parts of it that you would find interesting and valuable for your life, and feel free to take those, but I will not be offended if you fall asleep. Whether we choose to be happy or sad is literally, which way of the aisle you want to look at. And ultimately, it's really our decision at every point in the game. For the young in the audience, and I don't see too many SSE people here, so this may or may not be relevant for everybody, but I'll just state this because I think this was a cool thing that I learned. When you look at the word, if you play Scrabble, and I recently have played Scrabble after a very, very long time, the word thank you works up to precisely 18 points in Scrabble. Grateful works out to be about 12, which is 1 plus 2 is 3. And gratitude works out to precisely another 18. So all of these, I don't know if the Scrabble makers ever wanted to think about it that way, but they all work out to a divine number. So as we think about gratitude, there are questions that each of us needs to ask for ourselves. And I think some of these questions are the ponderables that I've bugged my tribe about, which is, what am I grateful for? What is grateful living inspiring me to do? What are some of my blessings in life, including the ones in disguise? How am I being supported right now? What connects me to wonder, awe, or a sense of the sacred? And these are pictures, but Geetha is very scared of them. Thank you. So I wonder and awe at the spider, but I am aware that I'm scared of them. Sorry. So I think there are ideologies that are out there, and I think Winnie the Pooh sometimes says it the best. Piglet noticed that even though that it had a very small heart, it could hold a very large amount of gratitude. And you see that in all kinds of animals, plants, flowers. There's a really neat movie on gratitude, which I would, unfortunately didn't download for me because of the large size. But I will share that link with Aparna, but maybe that is something that you guys could play. It's a wonderful narrative by one of the brothers in the Benedictine monasteries in New York. And If you look up gratefulness.org, that particular video plays there, and I invite you guys to take a look at it. So, expression of gratitude itself is a form of prayer because it awakens the inner divinity of a person, which is immeasurable, invisible, and transcendental. Guiding principles that serve to comfort us and to catalyze touchstones are these following 4 things, which are: life is a gift, everything is a surprise, the ordinary is the extraordinary, appreciation is generative, and love is transformative. When we can learn to focus our attention on and acknowledge that life is a gift, even in the most challenging of times, it gives us an opportunity to grow and extend ourselves with care and compassion to others. And grateful living truly asks us to be present in the moment, from the tiniest of things of beauty to the grandest of our blessings, because in that way we make sure that we're not taking anything for granted. So a little bit to talk about some of these concepts in my own particular life. I may just hit upon some of my journeys of these aha moments with Swami. Swami oftentimes was always the external figurine that I was raised with as a child, as an SSC student. And I think even before I had physically met him, I think as a child, I knew that there was something greater than what met the eye, and I didn't know what that was, but I knew I was powerful. But somewhere along the way, as you grow up and as you begin to take on constructs from society, from your education, you kind of forget that you are powerful. And then the guru approaches you and basically peels those onion layers only to reveal to you that which you already knew, that you truly are a powerful being waiting to be discovered by your own self. And no better way to do this than the World Youth Conference. There were only 2 things that I stayed awake for in the discourses that came about. One was Swami asking us to be leaders to protect the world. Leaders like lions, self-reliant, courageous, majestic, and just. The lion is the king of animals, and I want you to be king among men. And this was such a powerful statement for me as an impressionable 16-year-old that I felt that this was not something that I could walk away from. I felt I had to imbibe that in my life. I didn't know what it meant, but I knew that we were being challenged in a way no one else had ever done. It implored you to get up and do something. Additionally, to see young adults from across the world doing crazy amounts of service to help transform youth in other countries was equally amazing. One of the speakers from Malaysia basically managed to capture the essence of what Swami was saying by just these 4 words: dare to be divine. When you hear that, it's such a simple way to sort of condense all of what Swami is saying. It already assumes you're divine. All you have to do is just dare. Dare to do something than the ordinary. Dare to do something that you're not used to, but just dare, just try. Personally, for me, that statement has stuck on and ultimately became the theme for the Zonal Youth Conference that happened in 2019. And as the story goes with a lot of you, Swami takes the most unqualified and makes them qualified. I was probably labeled as the most shyest person in high school when I graduated. That was my superlative. And throughout my childhood, I was told, "Oh, you're so shy," and every single time I heard it, I was like, "No, I'm gonna fight this. At some point, I'm gonna come out of this, and does not describe me." And I think that getting into the Sai movement, being blessed with Swami's words that I could be divine, I could be bold, and I could do anything that I wanted. It didn't matter what my gender was, it didn't matter what my ethnicity was, what my race was, what my language was. I could do anything. And that is something that only your internal self can experience, even if others tell you. It just seems like words. But when you can feel it in your heart, there's no going back. You just move forward. And with that, after that conference, anything that came my way, I said yes, and then struggled a little bit. But I would say I would go forward. The doors would open and things would happen. I experienced things that I otherwise would have never experienced, be it man management, be it learning about tech stuff, which really is not part of my training as such, if you think about it as a physician. To speak in large audiences and feel comfortable, there's a beauty in that. And I think each and every one of you that's in the audience and anyone that's watching is equally capable of doing that. Because all of us have incredible stories that we have. If you're given the opportunity to be at the podium, I'm sure your stories are going to be equally stellar. Because the divine that motivates me is the one that's motivating you, and the divine is living out their unique stories through each and every one of us. And through this process, had the opportunity to have a lot of leadership opportunities, to be able to be part of disaster relief, to be part of teams and learning from extensive crew of people with incredible levels of talent, learning about audiovisual, learning about how to put together a conference, how to speak in Purnachandra Auditorium. Things like that I would have never imagined as a 16-year-old could happen to me, but it has. So if I'm a testament of someone that can come out of their shyness and speak to you all, I think each and every one of you is equally capable of doing the same. Enjoying the aha moments is a very necessary part of that. And this was another theme that came out during the World Youth Conference, where one of the Malaysian speakers, Uncle Jagadishan, mentioned that imagine you wake up in the first thing in the morning and you have your cup of chai or your cup of coffee or any beverage of your choice, and you take that first sip, piping hot, and you take it. The first thing you think, you may say it or maybe you feel it, is the word ah. And that's exactly what we feel when we see something of beauty, of something that's rare, something that's unique. The thing is that we all get used to the rigmarole roll of seeing the same thing over and over again, that we pass by. And I think that's what Thich Nhat Hanh, one of the Buddhist monks, often talks about. How do you walk with mindfulness so that you're able to appreciate the tiniest things? The spider that's walking on the dais, or a beautiful scenery. I was in Chicago this morning. I thought I would get here on time by 10 so that I could make it to the camp in ample amount of time to, get ready and be here. But we got on the plane and there was a technical delay. So we were delayed by almost an hour and a half, which meant that I was booking it pretty much all the way through. But even in those moments, every stop sign along this beautiful road to come here was just like, oh, I wish I could just get out and take a picture, but I couldn't. But it is so important in the hullabaloo of life that it's so important to take those moments. But even in those moments, as long as you remain in those zone, and today, like, my tribe offered me that through text messages of people talking about what gratitude meant to them, people keeping me company on the phone to make sure that I got here on time, people making sure that, even the Avis car rental person, making sure that I had my phone charger was charged up. So it's amazing to think of all these little things that have happened. And you know that he has gotten you back because the seat number that I had was 23. I got out at gate number 9. I got into a car that was placed in number 12. And the little air train that you take on in New Jersey, that was train number 27. So all these little things kind of make you, grounded, but it's like you have to remember. I could have just come here and not thought about it, but maybe because, you guys gave me the opportunity to think about gratitude, it made me remember these little things and truly savor in the aha moments. I think if you truly think about this idea of being in a state of gratitude, literally can be just summed up in 3 little words: stop, look around, and go. It doesn't mean that when you're looking, you just stop and you go into a state of inactivity. You still have to keep doing, because that's kind of what we came here to do, to continue to evolve. And in one of these aha moments, I'll just sort of diverge here a little bit, which was around the idea of, learning that you are capable of experiencing the divine in the most uniquest of ways. Because if you don't pay attention, then you kind of forget. So this was a quote that Swami just displayed on top of a moving truck right when I was about to give my dissertation in Chicago. I had stayed up all night, pulling an all-nighter, and when this was the talk before my dissertation, and I went to the podium and I completely froze. I had all my slides, they were wonderfully laid out, and nothing came out of my mouth at that point because I was extremely tired, and I mumbled through something which I knew I was not supposed to be saying, but I said it anyway, and I knew that I had completely bungled it. And I had gone to my professor and said, oh, I don't think this is such a good idea for me to move forward with my dissertation. I went so far to let her say that, hey, if you want to let go of me as your grad student, it's totally cool. I get it. Like you don't want me to go up to a dissertation full of, who's who, and then, make a fool out of myself. I remember her looking at me, laughing, and said, just because of that one presentation, are you crazy? Just go home, get some rest, get some sleep. I'll see you next week when you're ready for your dissertation. So needless to say, when I prepped for the dissertation, the anxiety of knowing that, oh my God, I could do this again, was riding so high. And I remember, of course, you do your chants and you are in the moment, you're thanking Swami for everything and the journey that you've taken. And then in cuts this large truck, and I literally had to pull over because he basically swerved a little too fast. And I was slightly annoyed at that moment. I was like, I can't believe this guy. What's he doing? And when I looked up, I saw this word, and it just said, fear is useless, faith is priceless. And I thought for a second, I'm just imagining things. But the cars, the truck started to speed. So I thought, this is crazy, so let me just follow him. I had about a mile with him before I had to take my exit. So it's a very small, narrow expressway if you've ever been in Chicago, going towards downtown. And my exit was right, just as he moved into the same exit that I was supposed to go into. So I followed him. And then the truck literally just disappeared. Like, kid you not, just disappeared. And I thought for a second I was in the Matrix and like something just weirdly happened. But it was too late for me to sort of think too hard about it because I had my dissertation coming up. So I just went to work. I just went to my school and got ready for it. But that's when I realized that here was such a simple way Swami managed to share such a profound statement, and in his inimitable style. Had he, said it in any other way in a discourse or something, it would have not made much of an impact. But something like this just kind of, threw me off kilter. When you offer gratitude to Swami, I think you often say, "Oh, thank you, Swami." And oftentimes you've heard both sides of the aisle when Swami speaks. Swami says, "Oh, you should be very thankful to the divine for everything." I'm paraphrasing because clearly I didn't sit through many of his discourses. And I've also heard the part where he says, "Why should you thank me? Am I not your mother? Am I not your father? Is there a need for you to really thank?" So it's always confusing. Which one do you want me to do, Swami? But there was a discourse, there was a talk a woman gave in Prashanti Nilayam. This was in one of the November Ladies' Day discourses, or Ladies' Day celebrations. And I'd never seen a female come up and speak in Parthi up until that time, so that was really cool. And so this woman goes up to the stage, bows down at Swami, and she comes up to the stage and she looks at him and goes, "Swami, I love you." And Swami acknowledges, smiles. And then she goes, "But not for who you are." And there was this gasp that went through the audience, like, wow, that's pretty impressive. And Swami just continued to chuckle, and then she said, "And I thank you for what I have become because of your presence in my life." Like, how powerful is that? Because honestly, that's formless is all-pervading, and that he was always much more than that form. So I felt like she described it in such succinct words. And again, what she said after that, I do not remember. But this was a very powerful statement for me. So if you want to go fast, you go alone. But if you want to go far, you go together, which is basically why Swami gives us a core, a tribe that we work with. And I think for me, the young adults that I grew up with, that I did service with, were instrumental in shaping me and instrumental in giving me feedback and equally triggering me as well, because I think that helped bring out all that was not needed and truly to refine me to be a better human being than what I was before. And this kind of is true, right? The most important spiritual growth doesn't happen when you're meditating or in a yoga mat. It truly happens when you're in the midst of a conflict, when you're really frustrated, angry, or scared, and you're doing the same old thing. And then when you're doing it, you stop and you decide otherwise, and you choose to do it differently. And I think that is kind of the point of this whole process, to pause and choose to do something differently than what you've done before. And in that moment, that space that exists, I think Viktor Frankl calls it the pause. That pause is a necessary pause. And we may choose to do the same thing again, but at some point, because of his grace, and I think the poem, When You Said Yes to Me, pretty much summarizes that. You may continue to do this over and over again. At some point, you'll tire yourself of that which is not you, and ultimately, you will remember why you said yes to me. And that's really the crux of this entire process, as far as I'm concerned. And I think I wanted to really talk about inspirations that come. And for me, my yoga mat or my meditation space has been my work. I work at a federally qualified health center in the south side of Chicago, and we usually only care for Medicare, Medicaid, or uninsured patients. So to me, going to work is truly a worship. It didn't seem that way initially because it was very character-building experience literally every day. And working in a resource-limited setting, you're oftentimes struggling to get the simplest thing, gloves or, things that are missing. But the patients that come through, that walk through, are just the most amazing thing that you could ever want for, that I can't imagine working anywhere else other than a setting like that. So this is a tale of two different patients. The one on the left is actually a painting that one of my patients carefully drew for me through the pandemic, thinking about me. Thinking that, hey, you guys as as healthcare providers might have had quite a bit of struggle. The beauty of this guy is that he's autistic. He doesn't speak a word. He's never spoken a word to me, ever. I've taken care of him for about 9 years. He is just an adorable guy. He'll always come with his mother. He'll just smile. He'll nod his head. He'll understand, I think, what I'm saying. But he speaks through his paintings. And he paints, and he gives it away. And I'm not sure if I ever made, gifts for my physician growing up. And to me, how is it that these people take the time to appreciate their providers is just insane to me. The story on the right is a gentleman who was about 80 years old, a short little African-American man who loved gardening. In the south side of Chicago, there are very few places where we have, gardens. So he converts concrete, parking lots or abandoned parking lots into community garden. One day he just asked me hey, Dr. G, what kind of vegetable do you like? And I mentioned okra. And he had no idea what okra was, but it took him about a year to figure out what okra was. He found the seeds from somewhere, and he cultivated that along with some tomatoes, because I guess he felt like they both go together. And a year later, this was waiting for me when I came into work. And he said, Mr. X dropped it off for you. And he said, it took me a year, hon. Make sure you eat it the way you wanted to cook it and eat it the way you would love to. So these are when you just fill with gratitude. Gratitude for the divine in these humans that just feel like you're one of them. I think they teach you connectivity. They teach you to be in the moment, to be reflective of that love that connects us all. This is my medical assistant who saw that, just given my schedule and the number of patients I was seeing as a primary care physician, days were long and breaks were very little. So she brought me a mirror one day, and she wrote a letter, which I still keep to this day. And she, her name is Shantae, and she said, any time that you ever feel down, open this up and look at me. You will see yourself. And then she wrote such a beautiful affirmation to go along with it, to remind me that you're not what meets the eye, you're more than that. I'm not sure what made her do that, and she never to this day has ever shared that, but she just felt that she had to share it at that point in time. And that was perfectly orchestrated because that was the day when I was at my lowest, and this little thing resuscitated me. Oftentimes, as physicians, we're looking for chemicals to resuscitate the human heart, but sometimes it's just the unseen, the love that resuscitates our spiritual heart. Love my uncertainty is pretty much the principle that I survive on, and because of that, Swami has to work overtime for me, as I say, including today. I used to love this poem by Robert Frost, which is a pretty long poem, but the last lines of it are, the road less traveled by, and if the two roads diverged in the woods, I took the road less traveled by, and that made all the difference. And a couple of years ago, maybe 10 years ago, I've never had physical interactions with Swami. It's always been in interviews, through dreams, or through signposts, or things that I read in the book. And this one time, Swami came in the dream, and I knew like this was a pivotal moment because this particular quote is always the bottom of my email. And one day, he, in the dream, he basically came and said the same thing, but in a way that I can never forget, which he said, "Who else will walk the road less traveled by with you other than me?" And that to me was like such a turning point, because that's when you knew that he had your back, whether he wanted to show himself in the physical form, whether he wanted to show it in any tangible way or not. And I think that's true for all of us, whether it's a verbatim, and I think this is precisely what Swami said in one of his discourses. It's like, I'm with you, in you, above you, below you, besides you. Walk with me, not ahead of me, not behind me, but walk with me. And I think that's such a beautiful, that alone is such a great way for us to remember and to know that you're taken care of. Kind of wanted to, how much more time do I have? $20 minutes, awesome. Kind of wanted to talk a little bit about the pandemic, because I think that's something that we all as humanity walk through. And I think that was a global pause for a reason, far more than what meets the eye, because I think that was a global pause needed for our own spiritual transformation, for humanity to raise its vibration, for us to sort of discard old ways of thinking and adopt new ways of thinking, and truly go in within. We were all socially distancing ourselves and continue to do so even now, and learning to respect, one another from afar, but looking within. And so many physical changes happened over the last several years. And I think for my workspace, it led to major transformations in the way we did work. We had to switch to telehealth. So suddenly, instead of the patient coming to my office, I was going to their homes through virtual world, through telehealth. It completely changed the way we looked at each other, and it also increased our appreciation for one another. And to see the resiliency of this population amidst, and this was a population in the South Side that lived through protests, racially driven, still continues to struggle with violence related to guns, which still continues to pervade through our society. And this week was a horrific example of that. But in all of this, I think it behooves us to sort of raise our vibration as a community, as a group of individuals, as a group of spiritual aspirants, to help, Mother Earth through this process. Equally so, we're also, depleting our resources at such an exponential rate, And I think when we think about gratitude, it is so important to also think about this space that we're inhabiting in this world at the moment, and how important it is for us to be grateful to Mother Earth. Driving through these lush green meadows filled with flowers, mountains, clouds, and for someone from Illinois that's only used to flatlands, I mean, this is a treat for the eyes. But this is no longer going to be the case unless we continue to work hard to change the way we live. And I think all the principles that Swami has spoken about, sealing on desires, being kind to one another, adopting sustainable living, becomes a key component of, part of our gratitude living, gratitude-based living. And it behooves us to continue to push that message through the spheres of influences that we have in our little microcosms, whether it be our workspace, etc. I think it doesn't matter which part of the world you go to, it's the same humanity. I think whether I went to Ethiopia, whether I went to Bangladesh, Belize, or Haiti, everyone prays the same, everyone has the same heart, and everyone offers gratitude the same way. Some may say Alhamdulillah, others may say Dhanyavad, others may say thank you. But the words are the same. The humanity that exists across these various continents are the same. But yet we create these divides within our own hearts and our own minds. And it is important for us to become aware of what we can do within our own little communities, our own little microcosms. And I think this is kind of where going back to dare to be divine becomes more important. If you dare to be a little bit different, if you take that pause and choose to do things a little bit differently, maybe we all can make a little bit of more difference in the world. And I think this is kind of where the idea of what the word I am, the affirmations that we use, becomes so key. I am is such a powerful affirmation. I think Swami has said that many, 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 many a times. You are a bundle of thoughts. You are what you think. And the word I am can change the vibration. What you put behind it can change the vibration of your environment that you're around. And to be in a state of gratitude is not always easy. I think there's a lot of barriers that we all have with that. And I just wanted to take a minute to sort of also acknowledge that. It's easy to sit here and talk about what one should do and can do, but sustainability is always the issue, right? We can start some project, we can have all the gusto about it, and then suddenly you're like, oh my God, how do I do this for 1 week straight, and then week 2, I'm back to square one. And one of the things that we've been doing in Region 5 is a monthly satsang, which started after the Zonal Youth Conference. And this was a Prema Vahini deep dive, so to speak. And in one of those sessions, we all kind of spoke about where we struggled with all our issues with, or where we struggled with sustainability. Oftentimes when you start on a journey, that's when all kinds of obstacles kind of show up and you have no idea how to really kind of navigate through it. It's almost like you don't want to say yes because you know that it's going to be followed by a whole bunch of, tornadoes. And I think the one suggestion that came out of that was really using the Ho'oponopono prayer, which is a Hawaiian prayer, which really talks about, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, and thank you. So this started personally for me as a challenge for myself. And initially, it was a mechanical process. Every day, I would get up, write this in my diary, and I promised that I would write this for a whole year. Each day that I wrote this, I started off thinking that I had to do this for somebody else, that I'm asking for forgiveness to another human being rather than myself. And over a period of time, you realize that as you're writing it, you're vibration changes, your thought changes around it, and then at some point, you're saying these words to your own self rather than to the external environment. To me, that was very, very, very transformative experience. And when the moment I started to forgive my own self, began to love my own self, and was able to thank my own self, it was a game changer for me. It made the most unpleasantest of experience a lot more tolerable. It allowed for crazy work experience to transform itself. It caused people who are so-called the hard ones to deal with to completely change. So the prayer really works for me. And I offer this to you as as a choice. You might want to try it out. Why? Because if you do it, anything that's sustainable beyond 21 days really does work. And sometimes we need something like this to sort of keep us going. And in this process, when you start appreciating your own self, you recognize that you are truly powerful. You recognize that you are a force to reckon with, even if the rest of the world doesn't see you that way. You walk the earth like you are divine. And the vibrational energy that you put out matches, the world matches it up, the universe matches it up with yours. And it's such a beautiful experience because at that point you become love. At that point you become grateful. At that point you become that which Swami talks about, which is being in the moment and allowing him to sort of channel himself through you, or the divine. I think it is important to recognize there is no one else out there like you. You are a unique footprint in this world. There is no one like you that has walked on this earth, and there will be nobody else that works on this earth that is like you. I think when you begin to understand the grandeur of that statement, I think you will start to walk a little bit differently, maybe with your head high. It's easy to sit there and compare, yeah, I wish I had, her hair, or, his wisdom, or whatever the case might be. I think we're all guilty of that, me too. But when you truly believe that you are so unique and that the divine chooses to work through you, I think that's kind of when, miracles happen. And this happened to be in a tea bag at work. And to this day, I kind of hold on to it. And that gives you courage to do things, to lead, to take on new gigs, to do things that you've never done before, to challenge yourself, to take the path less traveled by. So the journey with Swami truly continues. It's not just, it's a continuum, as it is with all of you. There isn't a point where you say, I'm done, I got it all, and then there's another challenge that comes this way. But I think eventually you learn to go with the flow. You become the flow. You're no longer the sinusoidal wave that goes up when everything is going well and come crashing down when things are not going well. You become a rhythm. And it's hard to imagine that, but I'm sure a lot of you are already experiencing that. And that's kind of what we're all striving to do at this point in the gig. And I think for me, it's really been a journey that, could it have happened any other way? Maybe. But it chose to happen this way. It chose to happen through the experiences that I've had. And I think an inflection point comes at every point, every birthday, at every, New Year's, where you sit there and think about all the things that have gone well, and you're thankful and you're grateful. And it's easy to do that hindsight, but to do it prospectively in every moment, I think that's kind of the the challenge here. And I think I invite you to, again, like, think about, what are those things that inspire you? How do you sort of keep that momentum going? How do you find that tribe that continues to inspire you? And how do you continue to, offer yourself every day for service a little bit more than before? For me personally, I think my own family served as that mirror to me. In my brother, who had Duchenne muscular dystrophy, I saw this will to do something different that, I had never seen before. In my mother, I see the need to serve all the time, even though she has an opportunity to just sit down and relax. In my father, I see the ability to, pause and take pictures. Because I think through pictures, he remembers to be in the moment, to enjoy the finer things, such as beauty, the nature. And we always joke about how when we're on long drives, in every scenic overlook, he takes a picture, which means every journey takes twice as long to get to. But it's fun. It may be the fuzziest of pictures, but it's nonetheless precious for him. I think in this process of being in a state of gratitude, you begin to embrace imperfections. I think being in a state of gratitude doesn't mean everything becomes, perfect, but you begin to embrace the imperfections. You begin to see people as they are. And I think you begin to realize that perfection is just a utopia. I think through my patience, I have learned that you learn to think about, in the form of words. Through my Sai family, I learn about different ways of seeing things. I see a group of dedicated individuals who are taking Swami's words and making it work in their own way. And I think each one of them is a leader of their own right. And each of them inspires me to be a little bit better, a little bit more, and put more effort into things. And ultimately, you're teachers, right? And everyone is a teacher in disguise. Every one of you is a teacher in disguise. And I think every experience is a teacher in disguise. But I think the key in all of this is just to make sure that we take the pause to remember that, the pause to say, hey, I can learn something from this moment. And I just invite you to walk that walk, because I think he's walking that walk with you, whether you know it or not. The question is, will you open your eyes? Will you open your ears? Will you feel his presence? Will you feel his touch?
Jai Sai Ram. Sister Geetha, did you know that we had a workshop today called Love My Uncertainty? Yeah, so you mentioned that too. So we would like to express our gratitude to Sister Geetha here for a very inspiring uplifting, motivating talk. You shared your personal journey with all of us. Along the way, you have contributed toward transforming us as well. Few things that you have mentioned that I would like to kind of go over one more time is this sense of dare to be divine. We are divine, but do we recognize that, and do we dare to be divine, and do we dare to be different and take the leadership in itself? Grateful living requires us to be present in the moment. And then, of course, this campsite and the drive up here, aha moments, enjoy the beauty, stop and take the pictures. I love the story about your disappearing van or truck. And I think that's something that we can go by as well, which is fear is useless, faith is priceless. Only Swami can come up with those quotes. So we would like to thank you for taking this time to come here today, this long journey with a lot of uncertainty, but you made it and you were here and you inspired us. Thank you. We have a couple of announcements. So we would like to ask that we continue to wear our masks, both inside and outside, just so that we are mindful of each other and respectful of each other, as well as the camp's request. So as we pack up tomorrow, if you would like a ride, if you need a ride, or if you're able to give a ride, please go to the service desk and let them know today, including your time, so that they can try and match some rides. Most devotees also like to leave after lunch, so there will be congestion. So it'll be nice, again, if you go to the service desk and let them know about your departure time, as well as maybe they can help you transport your luggage into your cars earlier on, so you can schedule a time with them to transport those into your cars and get that done out of the way so you can enjoy the rest of the program, and your transportation would be much more smoother. We are looking for volunteers, of course, to serve at the end of the session tomorrow. So if you're able to stay behind to clean up, close up the camp retreat for this year, please let service desk know again. We'd love your help on cleaning up cabins, devotion hall, kitchen. So, there's a lot of work needed to wrap that up. So please, if you're able to, please let service desk know. Again, there are note cards at the back. So if you would like to make notes of your departure time tomorrow, you can write it down and pass that on to the service desk. That will be helpful. If you have lost anything, there'll be a lost and found box outside the service desk, and you can go and look to see if you have your items there. So with that, we'd like to conclude today's talk. So we have dinner, and then at 8:30 we have bhajans in the devotion hall. Saira.